Muito boa noite, sejam bem-vindos de novo. De seguida temos como convidado Pippo Russo, jornalista e professor universitário.
Pippo Russo escreveu vários livros e artigos sobre a economia paralela do futebol, entre os quais a Orgia do poder.
Como o nosso convidado é italiano, a entrevista será feita em inglês.
Será a Francisca Oliveira a entrevistar Pippo Russo. Hello, Francisca.
Hello, Tatiana. Hello, Patrick. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Hello, Dr. Pippo Russo. How are you?
Fine, and what about you? I'm very happy to be with you, to meet you, and for me it's a great pleasure and a great chance.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to say that it's a big honor for us, for you to be here, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I know that you teach sociology in the University of Florenc, and
Yes.
as a journalist and a teacher yourself, I would like to ask you and to start off our interview. In what way do you think sociology can help journalists in their profession?
I think that sociology can help journalists in profession, but also journalism can help sociologists in their profession, because in my opinion, those are two fields that needs to communicate. Journalism is the production of a sort of truth that it's not the reflection of facts, but some version and some representation of facts. And this is some parts of sociology. And in the meanwhile, sociology need to meet with facts, need to meet with representation, need to meet with the production of representations. And so this is the point of connection between journalism and sociology. I started firstly as a journalist and then became a sociologist, and I really can't understand which part is prevalent on my two profiles. I am a journalist and a sociologist in the meantime.
Yes, everything is very much connected in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
In our event, we are all media studies students. What advice do you have for us and for journalism students as well that want to follow investigative journalism?
Investigative journalism is the research of the truth by documents, and the research of the truth behind the public versions. Because journalism, as I said, is a part of the representation of the world, but and in the majority of cases, this representation is a sort of stereotypization. We connect with the truth, with the representation of truth in much parts of the case with stereotypes. Journalist of investigation is go behind the stereotypes and searching the real sources of the fact. Any fact need to be investigated. Any fact is a complex fact, not a simple fact. And investigative journalism is above all going in deep in the complexity of a fact.
Searching for the real truth, I would
Yes.
say, maybe in a way. So because we are media studies students, I hope that we will end up working in that field. And there's something that I also want to ask you about the media world and about that. Do you think that the media hides or exposes the corruption, not only in football, but in many other topics?
But the media have a great responsibility. But the media are also connected in the production of the truth, and they need to cooperate in the production of the truth. And this is not a good thing, in my opinion, because media in an ideal world should have to be up to the production of the facts, up to the normal version, and but media and the professional of the media need to work with relationships with the protagonists, relationships with the elite, with any person that is in the focus of the news. And this need to cooperate in the production of the truth could be not so positive for media. In my opinion, media and the professionals of media need to go a step behind the focus of the truth and investigate how the truth is produced. They need to be reflexive on their jobs.
Yes. We have a question from Paulo Silva. He's our professor. He's asking, has journalism lost influence with the growth of new media? What do you think?
I think that journalism is a sort of symbiotic matter connected with the time that journalism lives. Journalism is a form of adaptation to the transformation of the world. And new media transform journalism, but in a sort of circle, journalism is transforming new media. I think that any time, any era, any epoch has its form of journalism. And now we are living in an epoch of the journalism connected with new media. So I think that, of course, new media changed journalism, but this is not a negative consequence. Journalism needs to adapt with the social and informational environment, and the actual environment is shaped above all by new media.
Yes, journalism needs to maybe grow with the new technologies and with the ways that media changes. I want to talk a little bit about football. How do you think football influences Portugal, and how much power does it have over the country? What do you think?
I think that football in Portugal is politics, and it's politics in a specific matter. Doesn't mean that is used by politics or is instrumentalized by politics. It's politics in itself. When we think about clubs like Benfica or Porto or Sporting Portugal, they are politics because they represent anyone a third or an half of the country, interconnected people, and they are a sort of manifesto of the Portuguese identity. And as I can see, a club like Benfica or Porto or Sporting Portugal are politically rooted in Portugal society, and political parties, political leaders need to connect with any of those three football clubs. More than those three football clubs need to connect with political leader and so on.
Yes, and that's funny that you mentioned politics, because my next question is actually related to that. Do you believe that Portuguese politics turns a blind side to possible illegalities due to the power that football has over the Portuguese culture?
I think that any country has its political corruption, and we in Italy know well. And I don't know if the connection with football is so decisive to measure the political corruption of a country. But I can say that in some countries that are so influenced by football, politics becomes football. I can mention a definition that was by an Italian scholar, an Italian scholar, that is Alessandro Dallago, that is a sociologist that studied the phenomenon of football ultras. And he said that in a certain point of Italian history, we had, I say in Italy, calcistizzazione della politica. That is to say, politics was reshaped as if it became football. Politics became a sort of football pitch. And this was when, of course, Berlusconi went in politics and translated football in politics and reshaped Italian politics as if it was football. And the same is in any country where football is so important. It's the case of Portugal.
Yes, it's very much, I think, enrooted in our culture. I remember when I was the Euro 2004, I was 5, and I remember that even me as a young child, we live it so intensively that it becomes a part of who we are. There's no way of escaping it in a way, because it is so like in the country, and there's no way to maybe not know about it. Even if you don't follow football or anything like that, you are still going to know when the Benfica Porto game is, who won, and everything like that. So I completely agree with what you
think.
I also wanted to ask you, why do you think that football has become a business that is as big as it is? And do you believe that the lack of transparency by the football agents is only motivated by money?
But we need to distinguish. Football became a business, and this is not the negative part of the matter, because football, in a certain passage of its history, became an industry. And this was inevitable, because football, like all other sports, is a form of show, is a form of spectacle. And a show is an industry.
Yes,
we
of
go to football because football has clients. We purchase football. Football is an industry. So there was no negative matter if football became a business. The other part of the story is the role of agents, and also in the role, also concerning the role of agents, we need to distinguish. In my opinion, agents are not a negative part in football. Agents as a role, I mean, agents are an indispensable part in football, especially after the Bosman sentence that gave freedom to footballers, but put footballers in the necessity, in the need to manage their career. And they wasn't ready to go these steps. They needed agents. The negative part of agents is when agents are no longer intermediaries, but became those that create the football market. This is the difference. If agents remains to be intermediaries, this is not a problem. They are professional of the intermediation. But if agents become super agents and they create the market, this is the problem.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, when it came to that negative part of the agents, when they are no longer the intermediate but making it a business, what do you think that the solution could be in a country like mine, Portugal? What do you think the solution could be?
But I think that the solution should be general and not only in Portugal. Of course, in Portugal you have super agents like Jorge Mendes. That in a small country as Portugal has a power that is really impressive. But
Yes.
there are a lot of countries that are in the same situation with one or some agents that monopolize the football market. And so what I say is that there is not a solution for Portugal or for Italy or for Poland. We need a solution that have to be a global solution, and this solution is connected with only one word: transparency, total transparency. We need to know how much money a single agent takes by a transaction, but not only this. Where this money is paid, by which party is paid, and this money is paid in Portugal or in Italy or in Poland and so on, or is paid in some tax haven. This is transparency, and we need to make transparent all of this information. And this is a topic just for investigative journalism. We need to know the reality. We need to know the truth.
Yes.
And because we don't have the truth, we need to search for the truth.
Yes, I also wanted to talk about the fact of transparency and Rui Pinto. You said in an interview with the Jornal Económico, a journal here in Portugal, and you stated, and I'm going to quote it: in any country, yes, Rui Pinto would find a very different attitude on the part of the police and the government authorities. I know that Rui Pinto won European Whistleblower Award. And did this award contribute to your idea that the hacker would be treated differently in any other European countries?
I think that Rui Pinto, that now is a collaborator of the Portuguese police, but before of this, he was treated like a criminal. I think that Rui Pinto in other countries should have been treated as a collaborator of justice. Because he helped to discover a dark side of an industry. And it's true that he took information in a way that it's not legal. But we need to evaluate which is the advantage. So it's more important the way that Rui Pinto took the information, or it's more important the good and the clarification, the need of justice that we have and that we can take with the information that Rui Pinto provided. In my opinion, in any country different by Portugal, the advantages would have been privileged in confront to the matter of illegality. And this is my opinion. And I am so happy that in Portugal, in recent time, the situation with Rui Pinto changed. Now he's a collaborator of justice, and this, in my opinion, is a great step ahead for Portugal and for his sense of justice.
Yes, we have a question from Joana Antunes. She's asking, what is your biggest challenge as a sports journalist? Sorry.
No problem. My big challenge is the same that I mentioned before. Transparency. Transparency is a big challenge, and it's not so easy. But it's not so easy, not because it's so difficult to catch and manage the source. It's difficult because in any country, also in Italy, not only in Portugal, there is a sort of attachment to the truth that is to minimize. A lot of times we don't say what is evident. We don't underline what is evident. And the real journalism in a lot of cases is to underline what is true, what is evident, but that in the day-by-day narration is not underlined. And the truth is to underline sometimes what is not underlined.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. We also have another question that I think is very interesting from João Dias. He's saying, I would like to ask Dr. Pippo, what he thinks about the financial fair play and its application in different countries. Or better, is there any difference in the treatment with clubs of enormous dimension, Chelsea and other clubs, compared to the little ones, Porto, etc.?
I can say that financial fair play as an idea, as an ideal, is a good principle, is a fine principle. And I think that sport needs to be played in the pitch and not to be managed outside the pitch by the money. And so for this reason, financial fair play is totally a struggle that we need to go ahead. But unfortunately, we have the impression that in the concrete use of financial fair play, there has not been a fairness, because it's true that clubs like Paris Saint-Germain or Manchester City was not fined, was not punished as they have to be punished. And this means that also financial fair play and UEFA too are not so courageous, are not so willing to enforce rules also to the bigger clubs. As we can say, phrasing George Orwell, there are some people, there are some guys that are more equal than others. And so there is not a fair situation, and fair play demonstrated to be an unfair play in some cases.
So pretty much some clubs maybe have a green card when it comes to some actions or some words, and maybe others don't, just because of maybe the size of the club and the players that they have, or maybe
there is not fairness because there are some clubs that are more than clubs. When we think about the two clubs that I named, that is to say Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City, we are talking about football clubs that are representative of national funds, that are representative of countries that are so powerful in economics, in politics. And so those are not normal actors in football. And this is why, unfairly, they are treated differently from the other clubs. And this is unfair football play.
Yes. Maybe coming a little bit back to Portugal again. Do you think that the country is maybe a little bit conservative and that the football is so in the country's culture that maybe sometimes people turned a blind side when it came to the whole Rui Pinto and Jorge Mendes situation? And how do you think that this blindsided side of people here in Portugal influenced the reception of your book?
But I don't know how the reception of my book has been influenced by a dark side. I can say that I was interviewed, but a lot of media, a lot of websites, but not by the 3 sports newspapers. That is to say, A Bola, O Jogo, Record. And I think that in Portugal there is an attainment to Jorge Mendes that is particular, because it's comprehensible that Jorge Mendes is a sort of national champion, and he is a piece of a propaganda, and is himself is a propaganda, because he's narrated as the guy that promoted Portuguese football in the world, that is a great exportator of Portuguese footballers outside Portugal, and with those high price. And so this could be in part a justification of for the treatment that Jorge Mendes enjoy in Portugal. But of course, we could only partly justify this treatment. I think, but I think also that there is another part of Portugal and another part of Portuguese public opinion that is not so backing Jorge Mendes, that is suffering the power of Jorge Mendes, and above all, a lot of football agents that are so constricted by this overpower by Jorge Mendes. So, in my opinion, in this moment, Jorge Mendes is not so popular in Portugal, but he can enjoy the backing of the media, the backing of powerful people, and so on.
Yes, he does have he's very known here. Everyone knows who he is, and maybe he can sometimes, like you said, enjoy a little bit of that side of fame. And well, you know.
Yes.
I have another question. Do you follow our journalism in general? What is your opinion?
Of course, yes. I follow your journalism. Any morning I read, first of all, Portuguese newspapers, because above all, sport Portuguese newspapers, because when I read sport Portuguese newspaper, I make an idea of what is happening in global football, because in the Portugal press, especially on football, it is asked so openly a lot of truth that in other countries are hidden. Above all, the power of super agent, or the role of third parties that is still acting in football. And in Portugal, this is frankly spoken. And this is why I read a lot of Portuguese media any day, which is my opinion. My opinion is not so negative, not so positive. I can say in sport media there is a sort of as to say, journalists are so near to the power of football in sport media. But there is also a great part of Portuguese journalism that is investigative journalism. And in my opinion, this is an excellence in Portuguese media. You have a lot of good investigative journalists, and I think that you need to be proud of this kind of journalism in Portugal.
Yes, that's also something that I wanted to ask you about. How do you think that investigative journalism is viewed in the world? Do you think that it's maybe the most dangerous, in a way, type of journalism? And have you ever had any threats made against you because of your journalism work?
Can you repeat, because I have some
Okay, I wanted to ask you, what do you think? How do you think that investigative journalism is seen in the world? And do you think that maybe it's the most dangerous, in a way, type of journalism? And have you ever had any threats made against you because of maybe some work that you have done?
I start with the last part of the question. No, I haven't now not dangerous treats. I mean some legal treats, but this is obvious. And how is it seen investigative journalism in the world? I think that in general it's seen in a good way, but we have to ask ourselves how much investigative journalism any country want to tolerate, and on which topics any country want to tolerate. To say, I am investigating in this moment not only on football, but also on another topic that is also a popular topic in Portugal, that is golden visa. And so, if I think about the topic of golden visa, in any country, which is the level of sensibility by public opinion on golden visa? In Portugal, I could observe that it's an high sensibility. But if I turn attention to Malta, I think that in public opinion is not so interested on the problem of golden visa, which people are taking and purchasing Malta and European citizenship by golden visa, paying a fee. So this is the difference. I think that in any country there is attention, and there is a perceived need to investigative journalism. But the difference is on which topics any country is sensitive and want that is investigated some topics. This is the difference.
Well, you already answered a little bit of the next question I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, do you believe we lack good investigative journalism, not only in Portugal, you already answered me that, but in the world? Do you think we need more good investigative journalism? And like you said, maybe a little bit with what every country needs, in a way.
I think that we will never have sufficient investigative journalism. We need more and more, and I hope that a lot of people between you will become investigative journalists, but because we need investigative journalists. And I add another thing. In my opinion, and it's a radical opinion, the only journalism that is worth to do now is investigative journalism, because if we only go we only go to catch the facts, but facts are of so rapid consumption in the era of internet information. Also, when we have an exclusive, so I have this news that no one of my colleagues have, but when I put this news on internet, in 10 seconds, any of my colleagues have the same news. So journalism now is not the catching the news. Journalism is go in deep in the fact. And investigative journalism now is the real reason of journalism.
Yes, and I think that with the issues that we've been having all over the world, I think it's so important for people to be interested in the true facts and to know exactly what's going on, and not just, how do I say this, not just the information that is given to us. Maybe, and I say for myself as a media studies student, it's something that I'm really interested in, knowing something that maybe it's a little bit controversial, but still knowing all the facts and really going in on the issue. I think it's so important, and I think we do have some students here that want to do that, and I hope that they are successful, because I think it's a very honorable part of journalism, and it's, like you said, extremely, extremely important. I have another question for you from João again. He's saying, can you tell, in your opinion, what are the consequences of the COVID in football, taking into account the sources of income of the clubs, and what are the measures that you think should be taken?
I think COVID is changing radically the football, and I think also that those changing are structured. So it's not a parenthesis. We are not in a bracket, and when we will be outside the brackets, we will return to the precedent point. We are in a situation that is changing us, and the same is for football. We are becoming used to see football without people in the stadia. We are used to see football as a television show, and so I think that we are structuring this, and this is changing football, and this is the first change in football. The second, COVID is changing economy of football. Of course, there is no longer the chance to make big money, but the real aftermath will be on the lower levels of football, because the bigger level of football will survive in a way or in another way. I think that the second, third, and fourth tiers of football pyramids will be really in trouble, and we could see that in the last season, the lower leagues stopped the championships, and they didn't restart. And a lot of clubs in any country, in Italy, like in Portugal, of the lower levels, wasn't able to restart. And this is changing. This is a great change, and I think that the economics of COVID should be a strong push for the idea of Super League, football Super League, European Super League. We are in the last weeks lot of time here spoken by the chance, the possibility of European Super Leagues for club, and I think that the forces that want an European Super League for club in those months have the great chance to realize this project.
Yes. You also mentioned the lower leagues, and I think there's a question here that's also interesting when it came to that. What do you think of Portuguese football training schools?
What do you think? Sorry?
What do you think of Portuguese football training schools?
I think that Portugal is a great school in football at any level. For footballers, for coaches, for other professionals. I think that football in Portugal is an excellence. And of course, I think all the best for training school and for football school and other. The problem of Portugal is, in my opinion, that is a small country that doesn't so much believe in itself. Portugal, in my opinion, is a great country. I love so much Portugal, and anytime that I can, I return to Portugal. Unfortunately, in last time not, but I am every time impressed by Portugal in any field, that is football, that is intellectual work, that is intellectual job, also journalism. In my opinion, in Portugal, it's an excellence. So I think that Portugal is a country that needs to have more confidence in itself.
Well, in the name of all Portuguese people, thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about your book, and I wanted to ask you, what was your biggest difficulty in writing the book?
The biggest difficult was to collect the sources, because I decided to proceed consulting open sources, because as I specificated in the foreword of my book, I made the counter history of George Mendes. That is not an history against someone. Counter history is the same history narrated in another version. So the counter history of George Mendes is George Mendes narrated in a different way using the same sources. And so this was the bigger difficult was to collect and find a lot of sources, because this is the great disadvantage of internet. Internet is an immense bulk of sources and information, but with the same easiness, information disappeared by internet. And I experimented a lot of time when I was writing the book on George Mendes. Some information that I some weeks before had found, some weeks later disappeared. And this was the big difficult. And of course, the other difficult was that I was covering a long time that started since 1996 to the 2016, that was the final point of my book, that is to say 20 years and collecting public information, open source, that cover 20 years is so difficult, really.
Yes. I was reading a comment that is actually true. I tried to find your book. I wanted to read it, and there is nowhere to be found here in Portugal. And Paulo Silva, professor, is also saying that we need a new edition of your book because it's sold out everywhere. So if you want to do that, I would highly appreciate it.
I think that you can solicitate my publisher in Portugal, that is Planeta, and
Yeah.
here. And I think that I am intentional to write another edition of Orgia do Poder. That is a new edition. So that is a sequel, not the precedent, because as I said, Orgia do Poder lasted to 2016, but since 2016 to 2021 happened a lot of things, starting from tax haven, football leagues, and so on. And so I think that a second book on George Mendes is absolutely needed. And I think that in brief time I will start to write.
That's great. I hope that I can find it so that I can read it. I was really looking for it, and I tried to find it here in the city where we study, Viseu. I tried to find it in my hometown, Aveiro, nowhere to be found. So if you do write a new one, and I hope you do, I really hope that I can find it so that I can read it. And I wanted to ask you also, besides football, in what other topics of investigative journalism are you interested in, and have you ever worked with?
As I said, I am working on the selling and purchasing of citizenship, and so golden visa. And this is another of my topic of investigation. And in general, I am focusing especially on football, on the economy of football. And those are my two topics. Maybe in a future, I will be interested in some other topics. To say now, I am working on the phenomenon of smart working as a consequence of the pandemic. And I am running a lot of interviews on smart working, and this is a sort of investigation, but this is university investigation and not journalist investigation. But maybe that, as I said, university and journalism, sociology and journalism are, in my opinion, interconnected. Maybe I will be some suggestion by those interview and this academic job to start an investigative journalism inquiry on smart working.
To finalize our interview, I want to ask you a final question, and it's regarding football again. And do you think that the true essence of football, and maybe relating a little bit to the COVID and to the agents that maybe brought a little bit of negativity towards football, do you think that true essence can still be recovered?
I think that I am so disenchanted with this, because I have been a lot of time covering the dark economy and super agents or doping or financial doping in Italy. That is really a great problem. And so I'm not so able. We could find the true spirit of football. maybe we could find the true spirit of football in the lower level of football, not in professional football. But I have an hope. I think that football, the higher level football now is in a big financial bubble. And I think and I hope that this bubble will explode sooner or later. I think that this will be when the bubble will explode. This will be the chance to have a most human football. I hope this, and I am a supporter of this. Above all, I am a supporter of the explosion of financial bubble. And then I am a supporter of the restoring of the true spirit of football. I am an old passionate of football, and I hope to see one day the football as it was.
I completely agree with you. Thank you so much for being here with us on Deck. It was truly an honor to interview. We're all very, very thankful, and I hope that we can meet again. And I hope that
I am me that thank you, and sorry for my not so good English, but it's been really a good chance for me, and I hope to have some other chance, because it's been really interesting. It's been an honor for me, and I'm really grateful to all of you, and I am available for you for any other necessity.
you don't have to say sorry for anything. I understood everything you said. Everything was more than wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I truly hope that we can meet again. So I hope that you and your family stay safe during this difficult time. I know, especially in Italy, it's very tough. And thank you so much again for everything.
Thank you so much for you, and boa noite.
Boa noite.
Boa noite.
Tchau.
Tchau.
Muito obrigado pela colaboração, Francisca, e também muito obrigado ao nosso convidado pelo seu magnífico testemunho.
Damos então por terminado o terceiro dia do evento. Obrigada novamente a quem está desse lado.
E amanhã teremos o nosso realizador João Brás e ainda o beatboxer Tiago Grade.
Muito boa noite. Amanhã estamos de volta aqui no On Deck.
Não esqueçam.